Verma ji for joining us. And a very interesting development has taken place. The Canadian National Police Chief has said that India has, so far, there is no linkage between the Hardeep Singh Nijjar case and any activities of the Indian state and the happenings in Canada. So how do you see this, sir? And you were saying all this, from long time, when you were, actually all this happened in front of you when you were serving in Canada. So what is your take now, sir, on this?
Now, when you really look at it, what he said, let's be very clear what he said first. So he has kept it in two different buckets. One bucket is the Khalistani terrorist who was killed there. And another bucket is transnational repression and transnational crimes. So these are two buckets. So when you look at the first bucket, so their court case is already on. Charges have been filed against 4 Indian nationals. These 4 Indian nationals went to Canada as international students. God knows what happened in the society. And they became whatever they have been alleged to have become. And their trial is on. Now the second bucket is India's overall engagement in Canada. And initially, if you recall, when I was still serving in Ottawa, a lot of noise was there on India's role in transnational repression as well as transnational crimes in Canada, which I always said it is not India's policy to interfere in the internal affairs of any other country. Unfortunately, this was not accepted by the regime of that particular point of time. But I'm very glad to see the statement which came out, and what he said was that right now he doesn't see any link with any foreign entity, which includes India, I'm sure, any foreign entity having links with transnational crimes and transnational repression in Canada. So personally, I'm very happy. Personally, I feel that what we all have been advocating for has seen the end of the tunnel, and I hope that this augurs well with the future relationship of India and Canada.
Where do you see India-Canada relations moving? Because now there's a change in dispensation there. In fact, there was a visit, very important visit recently by Mr. Carney. So how do you see, will there be a paradigm shift now in the approach, in the relationship?
See, if you recall, even at that time, what we had been maintaining, that yes, there is a crime committed in Canada. The judicial process should see it through and reach a finality. But this should not allow the bilateral relation to be hostage to this particular episode. Thankfully, the present Prime Minister of Canada, Prime Minister Carney, has been able to see through it. And what he has done, he has not taken off the case from the court, which is going on. So that is still there. But he has moved ahead with other relationship with India, and he had a very successful visit to India, as I see. I don't hold any brief for the government of India. I'm a retired official, a former High Commissioner to Canada, so I'm talking about these things in my personal capacity and not in any official capacity. So if I look at that, a lot of economic collaboration and cooperation has been talked about, but I would still maintain that this is the tip of the iceberg. The convergence between India and Canada is so high that we can look at much better days of bilateral relations in coming years and decades.
But this episode has adversely affected the ties?
Hugely, hugely. See, this episode had 2 major impacts. One, on bilateral relation itself, because everything was put on hold.
And there were downsizing of missions?
Downsizing of mission, EPTA put on hold, Early Progress Trade Agreement put on hold, no high-level visits taking place. So bilateral relation was put on hold, in a sense. So we lost 2 years. But, so this is one part. Second part is, it has created so much of emotion amongst the two peoples. So Canadians thought that V6, who have been declared as persona non grata, are actually criminals. We are not diplomats. Now that damage to our reputation, that damage to our emotional fabric, who is going to mend that? So everything will be honky-dory. We are soldiers for our country, and we'll take it in a stride. But I always would say that my colleagues have been treated very badly by this Canadian narrative, which I think was falsely created.
So do you see it as a diplomatic comeback or diplomatic vindication for India, sir?
Not, I would go ahead and call it vindication, but I would say it is diplomatic pragmatism, because finally the realization is that Canada and India have to work together. There is no other option. And when we work together, there will be issues where we will fight. There will be issues on which we see convergences. So those issues on which we see convergences, let's move ahead on that. Those issues where we see lack of unison of our voices, let's discuss, let's talk about it across the table. But let's not call names to each other. And I think we are reaching that situation as far as the governments are concerned, but we will need to work a lot on the emotional aspect of the two peoples.